I am very happy to present the report of the Employment Equity Act Review Task Force. It is a sizable tome in its defense in both languages. It is entitled A Transformative Framework to Achieve and Sustain Employment Equity. Before I introduce the chair, Professor Adelle Blackett of McGill University, I just wanted to say a couple of things. This is a sizable tome. It is a substantive and incredibly well-written tome. I have read it front to back. We are not wasting much time on a couple of things. One, and it's pretty historical, we are naming Black people and LGBTQI plus individuals as designated groups under the Employment Equity Act. This is historical, and one that I take very personally and am delighted to see it. We are also updating language, particularly in reference to those with disabilities and to Indigenous Canadians, and that is reflected here. The amount of time and effort and work and passion and heart and intelligence that Professor Blackett has put into this will be notable to anybody who reads it. And unlike many ministers who may stand before you with a very large binder, I actually do mean it when I say read it. It is an excellent read. And what resonates more with me than anything is a phrase that she repeats time and again, which is diversity is a fact, inclusion is a choice, equity is the law. And on that note, I pass it over now to Professor Adelle Blackett.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Merci infiniment. C'est un énorme plaisir pour moi de vous adresser aujourd'hui. Donc, je vais le répéter, effectivement. La diversité, c'est un fait. L'inclusion, c'est un choix. Et l'équité, c'est la loi. C'est la loi fédérale qui est avec nous depuis 1986 avec des modifications qui ont eu lieu entre-temps. Mais c'est une loi d'abord que, suite à des consultations extensives, nous avons pu comprendre qu'il y a un énorme engagement envers l'égalité et l'équité en matière d'emploi. So there is tremendous commitment. We've heard this over and over from a range of constituencies across Canada to support employment equity. What we also heard is that folks want us really not to do the symbolic, not to engage exclusively in numbers crunching, but to really move toward achieving and then sustaining employment equity in Canadian workplaces. And so on the strength of that, we've offered a framework that is designed to transform employment equity, one that helps workplaces to identify and eradicate barriers to employment equity, one that ensures meaningful participation in employment equity, and one that allows regulatory support in the form of an employment equity commissioner to ensure that we achieve and sustain substantive equality. So there are a range of additions that we propose, a range of changes, but the framework is clear. It is time to achieve and sustain employment equity in Canada. Thank you.
Hey, Minister, so what are you committing to change in the legislation?
So right now what we are committing to is the two designated groups, which we didn't want to waste any time in announcing. And also our intentions to look very carefully at the language around disabled people and Indigenous people. Some of it needs updating. This is going back quite some time, and we wanted to reflect the government's now acknowledgement of distinctions-based language, which was something that, as Minister of Indigenous Services, I'm very keen on doing because it reflects the Canadian reality. But we have in total 187 recommendations here, so we're going to take some time to go through it and to make sure that we give it the analysis and therefore the follow-through that I think that it's due.
How soon do you think we'll see those changes to the legislation?
Oh, I think hopefully soon. I don't know. I don't want to prejudice the work, but I think we're all very keen to move. There feels like there's a great deal of momentum here, and I think that the professor has been extremely clear and precise in her language. So I don't want to waste much time.
Do you need to look at all of the recommendations first to determine what you accept, and then you're going to move forward with legislation? What's the process?
Well, no. I mean, what we decided on, as I said, we wanted to take action on two things: the two new designated groups, which we thought we didn't need to waste any time to announce our full intention to do that, because frankly, I just thought that if I did hesitate, people would read something to that. It's a very definitive statement and a very definitive update, and I think that you had to come out with a very definitive response. How we go about that in substance and in the legislative language, for instance, we'll get to that. But I think it was very important to say that with great enthusiasm that we would be including 2S LGBTQI+ and Black people as two new designated groups under the Act.
Minister, can I actually ask about the anti-SCAP workers bill?
Sure.
Right now, obviously, it's not going to get passed before you rise for the holiday break. Are you concerned about the pace of how it's going through Parliament right now, or are things on track right now?
No, we are determined that it will get through. This is, again, something that we've worked on very hard with the NDP. I'm fully intent on making sure that it gets through. In the meantime, we're not going to waste much time. We want to make sure that officials are getting up to speed. That was the whole point. I mean, we've got a provision in there that asks for 18 months, and it's going to take a long, long time to make sure that our officials in the CIRB and our federal mediators have the resources and the time to get used to what is the biggest change to collective bargaining in Canadian history. Like, they need time in order to be able to enforce that, in order to be able to make sure that supply chains aren't blocked, for instance. It is absolutely essential that they feel comfortable with that legislation.
And about that, I think there's two bills right now that are going through Parliament that have only kind of broken through the Conservative blockade because we've put motions on the floor to basically bring in time allocation, to speed them through committee. Are you anticipating that right now? Have the Conservatives signaled that they're going to kind of hold up this bill?
I don't know. They've surprised me on a whole host of fronts. I didn't see Ukraine free trade happening either, but it did. So I don't know. I just know that we are committed to this. We committed to it in our platform. We committed to it in SACA. I am bound and determined to do it. And if they have legislative interference, then I will try and counter it every step of the way.
Coming up with this new system, obviously it's to fix the old one. Does that mean that you'll be looking at settling disputes with some of your public servants, your Indigenous and Black public servants, their lawsuits?
Just want to be clear, you're talking about the Employment Equity Act? Yeah. I think I don't want to prejudice anything other than to say that the recommendations have now come forward. They are extensive. Let's get through them. Let's figure out how it will translate to legislative change, and I think then we'll be in a better position to answer some of those questions.
Professor Blackett, can we just ask you, in conducting this review, what surprised you the most? I mean, there was a line in the report that penalties hadn't been levied for decades. Like, what surprised you the most in doing your study?
Yeah, thanks. I was particularly surprised to have, on the one hand, a lot of very committed people, and second, a lot of lack of resource, lack of understanding even of how the legislation should be applied, and lack of consultation. So the recommendations are designed to really redress that, to ensure that we have strong oversight in the form of a commissioner able to ensure that the audits are acted upon, that there's movement, that we're really achieving employment equity. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you all.
Thank you.